Welcome. It's my time. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our panel, Managing Cultural Event in Northern Nigeria. So, before I dive in, I want to ask a question. Who here knows why Shakespeare writes only in pen? Does anyone know? Well, because he can't decide between to be or not to be. Come on. To be or not to be, come on, it's funny. Come on. You guys need to clap for me. All right, so my first question is for you, Sada. Why don't we start by discussing some of your goals going into Hibaf, the direction you envisioned for the festival, and how that is going?
Okay. Hello, everyone. That's a loaded question, but Hibaf, that's the Hausa International Book and Arts Festival. We had the first edition last year, and hopefully we'll be having the second edition this December. Hibaf is basically another angle of looking at books. I know we've had a lot of discussions around writing, literacy, and all of that around language. For Hibaf, the overarching team is looking at literature in Hausa language specifically, and not just literature, but also conversations around almajiranci, insecurity, but specifically in the mother tongue, in the language that is Hausa. But that doesn't mean that it's strictly about people that speak Hausa. Those of you that were at Hibaf could understand that we had panels also in English, because we can't take it away. In northern Nigeria, Hausa might be the lingua franca, but English is also a means of communication, a means of interacting with all of the others. So for me, what the whole mission was to talk about these books. Going to Kano, you see a lot of books written in Hausa language. I think more than books written in English. We've had amazing writers. We have Hafsat Abdul Wahid, who was at Hibaf, one of the amazing women writers in northern Nigeria. So we felt we needed to celebrate also that angle of literature written in the local languages, not just Hausa, but we had people coming in, even our slaves from Mina. They came over for the Hausa International Book and Arts Festival. Yeah, so that was the whole idea, to have that cross-conversation of writing specifically in indigenous languages.
Thank you very much, Sada Malumfashi, for that. And I'll jump straight into as Uchenna. So Sokoto State is the seat of the Caliphate, and it's not as secular as Kaduna State. And it's coupled with the fact that you're an Igbo indigene of Sokoto State. I believe this has kind of an effect on what you do at the Sokoto Book and Art Festival. So can you share how this affects the festival?
Thank you so much for having me. And I must confess what is a privilege to be speaking at a Kabafest panel, when it was Kabafest that birthed the very thing we do in Sokoto. So thank you so much, Kabafest. Yes. Okay, so I would be talking about these hindrances you talk about in two layers. I would be speaking on a communal level as well as a personal level. As a creative community in Sokoto, prior to 2019, there was very zero to little presence of artistic and creative activities or platforms in Sokoto. So when we decided to change what was becoming the norm, what happened was that a number of persons were not very comfortable with that. It is not against to say that Sokoto is a very conservative place. You know, what is considered the most intellectual discourse, unfortunately, is conversations that surround politics. You know, when a group of young people are gathered, the first thing people think of is they are discussing young leaders' party, you know. So here we were trying to have conversations about poetry, trying to have conversations about fiction, about creative non-fiction. So there was some kind of resistance, you know, from the audience. You know, then whenever we went to search for spaces for our events, people failed to realize the importance of what we're doing. Why should we give you a hall to discuss poetry? Like, how does that help us as a people? So you see, there was that problem, and slowly it began to change when, through our constant activities, people began to see, oh, this can be used as a way to talk about these issues that you consider relevant. You know, we could talk about them through poetry, we talk about them through stories. So yeah, over time it began to change. So on an individual level, yes, yes, I'm Igbo, born and brought up in Sokoto. I think the hindrances I've faced really are mostly from persons who meet me for the first time. Say I want to visit an office, I'm submitting a proposal, and the head of the proposal is reading Sokoto Book and Arts Festival, and the signatory is reading Uchenna Emelife. So the person looks up, I'm like, what's going on? So yeah, I get that a lot. What's going on? And then they get to know me and understand, oh, this is going on. This is what is going on. So I'm going to end with this. I think it's a problem when we don't treat people in isolation. You know, what we do in the society, not just Nigeria, is that we tend to look at individuals as collectives. You know, when you meet one person who is this say language or tribe or religion, you begin to project on others. You know, and that is a problem. And I believe if we can just treat everyone individually, I think the world will make more sense.
Thank you so much, Uchenna. I like that you said that people started to see that these venues and this space is to start talking about problems the society is facing. And which brings me back to Suleiman's question. Cultural events has a significant role in addressing the defining issues in our lifetime. So I understand your Kabafest, Yobe, Peace and Arts Festival is all about, is all more, not all, is more about promoting arts and peace. So what else are the underlying issues that your Kabafest tries to tackle?
Thank you, Sumayya. Good evening, everyone. One of the major problems we notice is not just limited to Yobe. Africa is home to about 3,000 indigenous languages. But a damning statistic is by 2100, half of those languages will be gone, replaced by English and French. English will actually be the most spoken language in the world, followed by French. That's despite the Chinese population, meaning that most of it will come from African languages giving way to English and French to rise. So in Yobe, we have issues with literacy level, so I don't actually see English taking over anytime soon. But we have a far bigger problem that has been around for ages, and it's actually the Hausa language. I'm sitting here as an example of what is happening to indigenous languages in Yobe State. I am from a minority tribe, Bole, but I actually can't speak it at all. And then I can speak Hausa, Kamarja Kinkanun. So Hausa has actually replaced my language for me. And then there are languages in Yobe that are in danger of extinction. Mostly this danger comes when you have only old people that can speak a language, while the younger ones can't speak it. My mom spoke Bole, my father can't, and then me and my siblings cannot. So Yobe is home to 11 languages, including Hausa and Fulfulde, which are found all over the north. Unfortunately, one is extinct. So we have 10 languages left. So we thought, as part of the Kabafest, we shouldn't just concentrate on the peace and arts part, but also preserving our culture. Then our way of dressing has also disappeared. I'm dressed mostly now like a Hausa, while Bole attire are lying in museums in Yobe State. So what we have done is we have engaged fashion designers, because we think it is going to be very difficult to look at young people and then ask them to wear what their ancestors used to wear. So we are redesigning for all the indigenous languages, retro dressing. And then Yobe has also faced issues with tribalism, and it is still facing them. I am a Bole, but in Potiskum, we have about 6 or 7 tribes. And then I always find it confusing that we are all Muslims, mostly the majority is Muslim. And we face the same Qibla, and our children sorry, our younger ones go to the same schools, use the same toilet and whatnot. But you find that it's very hard for those tribes to intermarry between themselves. So as part of that, for the evolution of the culture, we are also introducing cross-cultural dresses. For instance, let me use Nigeria as an example. You can mix Igbo with Hausa attire or with Yoruba. This is what we are doing in Yobe through the Yobe Peace and Arts Festival, which is now the May Peace and Art Festival, because as part of our efforts to preserve our cultural heritage. And okay, and then there is also the issue of vernacular education. Pre-independence and a little post-independence period before the 70s, people were taught in their indigenous languages in schools, and then UNESCO recommends that from the ages 0 to 8, they should actually be taught in indigenous languages, because then the brain was develops faster and then it's easier for them to learn. This has disappeared. So we are trying to use arts to return it back to light. And as part of the Kabafest last year, we introduced poetry performance, spoken word poetry performance in all the indigenous languages in Yobe State. So we are trying, as part of the festival, to collegiate Yobe Literary Society in our secondary schools, so that we'll be able to pick on from where we left at the festival. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gimba. Thank you. I like that you started with talking about language and how languages are disappearing and how you're using the festival to change narratives. So festival can give voices, which brings me back to my second question for Sada. Festival can give voices to new narratives. They contribute towards shifting society values. So how do you try to achieve this, and what challenge do you face?
New narratives, festival. I think Hausa is not new. I think what they're doing is more on the new narrative. But I think for Hibaf, is try to celebrate what the narratives that we already have. Because I think the issue with literature in Hausa is that there is no acknowledgement that it's happening. It might not be as qualitative as the books that we're having in English, but the fact is they are still out there, and we have to acknowledge that they are still out there. So for Hibaf is to be able to have those conversations. Unfortunately, we didn't have any novelist or writer in Hausa at this festival. I think in 2019 we had a panel specifically that was in Hausa at Kabafest. So those are the ideas, those are the things we're trying to look at, to be able to identify those people who are practicing art, those people who are practicing their writing in the languages, and to also celebrate their work. I know recently there's been a lot of controversies around some songs in Hausa. Those are the things that we want to talk about. We don't want to shy away from that. I think it was two people, Safarau and Adogwanja, their songs. So why don't you have conversations around that? These are people speaking about the society. These are the things that we want to talk about. When Ochai was doing his performance yesterday, you could see what he infused. It was local musicians in the local language. These are people that are practicing. We know them, they exist, but we do not acknowledge them in our own spaces. So for us, it's about democratizing the arts and literary spaces to bring in other undeserved voices or underrepresented voices in the conversation.
Thank you very much, Sada, for that. And that brings me to the second question for Uchenna. So I was wondering how you balance tradition, culture, while experimenting and representing the communities and connecting to otherness at the Sokoto Book and Art Festival. You told me that there is something you want to present.
Yes, thank you very much for that important question. Yes, I have 2 slides, but they should be working on it. Yes, so I think it's very important for us to understand what tradition is. What do you define as tradition? You know, are you talking about tradition in the sense of culture as a way of life? Or are you talking about tradition in the sense of a norm? You know, what has been generally accepted that this is who we are? You know, so the entire idea of Sokoto Book and Arts Festival And I would like to talk about more than just Sokoto Book and Arts Festival, but the creative community in Sokoto, which dates before Sokoto Book and Arts Festival, is one would like to call it a defining of tradition, because it has been considered a norm for all of this not to be present here. But what we are doing at the creative community is to let you know that you're not necessarily changing your identity. You're not necessarily losing your identity in your engagement of literary and creative arts. Instead, what you are doing is realizing that this is who you are. The theme of this year's edition of Sokoto Book and Arts Festival is a returning. And what we aim to achieve with a returning, having conversations that show that it is not necessarily alien to Sokoto people. It is not absent, no. There was just a point where we forgot, and now it is time to remember, basically. So I have 2 slides here, one from a poetry slam we recently organized. Yes, so the poetry slam, the beauty of the poetry slam was that when we wanted to have this poetry slam among secondary schools, we had a lot of school teachers who told us that their children cannot do poetry. They are only good in debates. Can they do debates? And we said, no, we don't want debates. We want poetry. You know, then we insisted that they were going to do poetry. We said, okay, do what you can, and we'll see how we can come in. And to their greatest surprise, because even the teachers were marveled at how amazing their students performed. You know, they came there and they talked about how Nigeria affected them as children. We had the youngest girl was the one who won the prize, talking about how her mother cries when she comes back from the market in her poetry. You know, so it's what we try to achieve with the creative community, to make you realize that what is considered the norm is not necessarily your identity. You know, you could branch out. This is how I like to do this analogy whenever I get to talk about norms and experimenting. You are in a box. This is a square. And what we are saying is take your leg out of that square. Just one leg. Try it and try the other next square. When you try the other next square, you realize that you have not lost yourself. What you have done is take a step. You take the other step. What are you doing? You are walking. And what does walk signify? Growth. So you are growing. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Uchenna, for that, taking us out of the box that we try to box ourselves in. A lot of people try to do that, and thank you for what you do at Sokoto Book and Art Festival. And then this brings me to my last question on this round, second round, not this panel, relax. My question for you, Suleiman, is I know that the pandemic has brought unprecedented hurdles to almost all spheres of lives, but then you decided to start your first maiden edition of Kabafest immediately after the pandemic. So how were you able to do that?
All right, thank you. I think while the world was fighting COVID-19 pandemic, in Yobe we were actually fighting a different pandemic, which is the belief that COVID-19 doesn't exist. So there was a curfew quite all right, but there is no lockdown as witnessed in Abuja, Lagos, Kaduna, and other big states in Nigeria. Most people were lax about it, so the major challenge we faced is not from the COVID-19 pandemic, but from the general lack of support from the government and getting to bring guests to Yobe State. Because Yobe has been under an insurgency that has lasted for more than a decade. Most of our guests found it very difficult to come. We tried Richard Ali, who is here, Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, and then later the challenges become more of a fun thing. And we wanted to invite Lola Shonein, but we just couldn't talk to a literary icon and then tell her to sponsor herself to Yobe. We thought that it's going to be an embarrassing for the first book and art festival in the Northeast. So later, we relied on some of our friends, much of the younger guys, since we understood each other a lot, so we were able to open up to them. Salim Yunusa is one, Said Saad Abubakar from Borno Literary Society, and others helped us to actually fight the challenges. And then when we couldn't get funding from the Yobe state government, agencies stepped up. The British, through the managing conflict in Northeast, sponsored by the European Union, stepped up for us. And so we were able to organize the event after that. So it was more of a fun thing. And then that's when the issue of COVID-19 actually came. It was after we had planned everything. So British Council, as an international organization, gave us their guidelines, which contain instruction on COVID-19 protocol. So we couldn't have more than 50 persons in the festival. And with limited funding, we were unable to live stream it and then get most of the videos. So it was quite disappointing, and we are looking forward to improving on what we did last year.
Thank you, Suleiman, for that. And I'm sorry about all the hurdles you guys have to cross to do your first maiden edition. So should we be expecting the second one? Sure. All right then. And that brings me to my third round of questions. Sada, what he said about the challenges they faced, I've come to realize that we have this problem, cultural events have this problem, whereby they don't know how to turn short-term events into long-term community engagement and partnership. I think it's only Lola Shoneyi that has been able to do this in Nigeria. She has been able to do Ike Festival every year, and for a decade now, I think this is her 10th Ike Festival in November. So I think it's only Lola that have been able to pull that straw. I was wondering, how do you think we here as cultural events can be able to overcome this challenge?
LS is a superhero. So it's about learning, I think, for me, and I'm going to give some few stories. I know Kaduna so much because I think we've been doing this in Kaduna at least for almost a decade now. But how did we start? It was by what he mentioned, doing little engagements, poetry events here and that. I can remember 2016, Purple Silver, I know a lot of Purple Silver crew over here, and that's how we started. It's about gathering in those places, but it was just not enough. I think that's what also cultural operators in Northern Nigeria need to understand. We needed to have a proper structure. Personally, I learned that by working at the Yasmin El-Rufai Foundation with Suleiman Usman Yusuf for almost 3 years, in that it's not just about doing the arts for the passion, or for passion's sake, for doing it properly, but you need to sustain it like you mentioned. You need to learn on how Lola was doing it. So for over 3 years, we were consistent in doing what we were doing, but it's about what? It's about programming. It's about having a plan. You don't just say in your head, I'm going to do it, and just decide to do it, but you need to plan over a year before you achieve some of that. Coming back to the learning, we wouldn't be able to do Hibaf if we were not learning from others. In 2015, I traveled to Ake. I think the governor also mentioned that was the same year he traveled to Ake, but I decided to carry myself with my own money and go and see how Ake was done, not just by looking at it and saying, okay, I'm going to do what they're doing over there, but by learning, by connecting with others. That brought Kabafest back to Kaduna in 2017, and I think that opened up a lot of hubs in terms of literary hubs and art stuff in Kaduna. But still, it's about how do we sustain all of that. We have a lot of communities over here. Personally, what I did, and you know that, is I disturbed Lola. I asked her questions as much as I could. I know she was tired of me. She was in London. She was renovating her house. I will call her. She will put it on video call and say, Sada, see, I'm renovating my house. Stop disturbing. But we needed to do that. We needed to ask questions. We are not islands. We don't know how to do this. We're very young. I know Sokoto also because he kept asking me questions last year before they did that. They did a brilliant job for a first-time festival. So it's about plan. It's about structure. What I asked him, I think yesterday, was, are you guys registered yet? Because I think it's very important to be a legal entity. You can't just be doing it on your own. It's going to disappear. You have to be a legal entity. And I asked him that at Soberfest, you guys should register yourself. We decided, okay, we're going to come up with something open arts, and I'm happy a lot of people are doing that, or Chai with Mod. We are all legal entities that we are engaging with others on what we're doing in Kaduna, Ghani Art with Kaduna Fashion and Art Festival. These are the things. Once you are legally registered, you can now beat your chest and say, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is my plan, this is how I fund my work. So the nitty-gritty of it is on the backside. We spend 1 year planning for Hibaf, but of course Hibaf only runs for 3 days or 2 days at most. But it's the planning on the back end of it, on the people you engage, on the team you have, on the belief you have in yourself. So I think for sustainability, it's about having structures and about having plans. They are boring, but I think they're necessary for you to have a successful festival.
A resounding round of applause for Kaduna cultural events. Mod is doing amazing things, covered and co. So please, let's clap for them. Thank you, Sada, for that. So it's structure and planning. All right then. So that brings me to my other question for you, Uchenna. What future do you envision for us as cultural festivals and cultural events in northern Nigeria?
Thank you so much. And I must give a shout out to Sada, who has been really, really, really incredibly helpful last year's and this year's edition of Sokoto Book and Arts Festival, and what he does really for cultural events in northern Nigeria. So yes, I really look forward to a future where it is no longer considered a surprise when we do what we do. As much as it is, it can be commendable when people commend you for what you are doing, but at the same time, it says a lot about that place you are doing it. When every time it is a surprise, when you introduce yourself, you say you're from Sokoto, and you are doing all of this. But like, from Sokoto, you are doing well. A journalist wants to interview you. All of those interviews are amazing. In the last 2 to 3 months, I have granted about 3 or 4 interviews after the last Poetry Slam, and they're all directed the same way. Oh, you are in Sokoto doing all of this, the same thing over and over again. So I really look forward to a future where it's not considered a surprise, that where it should be considered impressive when we are doing better than every other person. Yeah, but not when we are doing the bare minimum, because it says a lot about who we are. So I look forward to that future where all of this are no longer abnormalities.
Thank you very much, Uchenna. Thank you. And that brings me to my other question to you, Suleiman. So what potential role does cultural events hold in the development of northern Nigeria? What role does cultural events hold for the development of northern Nigeria?
Thank you. I have always had the belief that football and cultural activities could be the bedrock for development in Nigeria for 2 reasons. One, when Nigerians are watching the Super Eagles or any of the national teams, they lose sight of their problems, their differences, and unite behind the team. It is the same for cultural activities. Yesterday, I was here for the compound dance presentation. Yesterday, I don't even know which language it belongs to, but I love it. So that's the beauty with cultural activities. It lets you see the beauty, the real sense of cultures other than your own. And so I think it will be able to help us foster unity and togetherness. And then from then, I'm sure it will be very possible for other forms of development to happen. And then when one is performing or is engaging in a cultural activity, usually everyone brings his A game because it challenges you to be better. You are coming in front of people, and then for some members of the audience, you are probably coming to see an icon or something. So there is no way one will come to a cultural event and leave without learning. Thank you.
Okay, so foster unity and bring about development in northern Nigeria. Thank you very much, Suleiman, for that. And then this brings me to the other question for Sada. He says that this will bring about foster unity in Nigeria. But I also want to know what you think the significance this has and the legacy it will be for our younger audience.
That's cultural activities.
Yes.
Yesterday when Ochai was performing, I keep coming to that because it was really brilliant. There was about a 5-year-old child over there watching, and she was like this. And I wanted to be that person to be able to, I wanted to be in her brain to understand what she was assimilating for a 5-year-old seeing that dance. So when we went out later, what was she doing? She was moving her hands and trying to do the performance they were doing. So those are the kind of things that awaken certain things. I know we were talking about literacy earlier and Ma'aruf's way of teaching. These are innovative ways of teaching. There are different ways of teaching, especially for young people. You need to first activate their brain. Without the brain open to taking in things, you won't be able to assimilate or learn. So I think for me, writing, art, personally, I grew up reading a lot of books, and I think that helped me to be able to open up my brain to understand, to question certain things in the society. And I believe that's the role of art, that's the role of culture for younger people, especially in the society, is to be able to open up our heads. We gave examples of the Harry Potter books, all the books that we read, because it's some people, some crazy writers decided to imagine and put down those imagination. That's for writers. For painting, we saw all the art exhibitions ongoing. These are things that are happening. You have conversation with young people in Kaduna, and there are a lot of people that are in it. They have their creativity in them, but what they need the space. And I think Kabafest has helped with that over the last 4, 5, 6 years. In that people now understand that they can pursue their talent. People are born creative, but they need that space. They need to see other people doing it to be able to nurture their own creativity and bring it out. And I think that's why it's super important what's happening in Sokoto, in Yobe. Of course, here, Kaduna, the motherland of culture in northern Nigeria, in the whole of Nigeria, to be honest.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. All right, guys, I know we're tired, so this is the last panel. Can you just cooperate with us and listen to what these young men have to say? Thank you. All right, Uchenna. How do you think we can build legacy and nurture emergent cultural events?
Building legacy, it begins with, before you can build a legacy, you have to start. Really, you cannot leave something that has not been started. So I would say to persons here who have had thoughts that they have considered crazy and unrealistic and impossible to achieve, thoughts that have to do probably on a communal level, on an individual level, to just start, really. And starting means not succeeding, Starting is not an assurance of success. That is an important thing we have to know. Because when you start, at least you have something to improve on. You have something to work with. So start and be consistent. Consistently do that thing you are doing. When we started what we do in 2019 in Sokoto, I tell you, there were some times where we had audience of 5, 10 people. Who are your audience? Members of your team. And we don't care. We will have that project. We will take pictures, post it. People from other places will be like, you guys are doing amazing things. We say, yes. We are doing amazing things. Yes. So you see, and because naturally humans are very, very gumbody-ish. They like gumbody. So when you are now appreciated by someone else, people begin to associate with you. So just start. Do what you are doing, be consistent, and don't be afraid of failing. There are many times we've had very failed projects. Last year, we started a project called 500 Books for 500 Students. The idea was to raise 500 books after we visited 10 public schools in Sokoto for these students. We have taken their data, we had assured them of books. I hide now whenever they see me. They're like, Uncle, where's that book? I cannot give you a book that I cannot buy. So unfortunately, that failed. But the funny thing, in our project for next year, we have 1,000 books for 1,000 students. We didn't do 500, we want to do 1,000. And maybe by next year, Kabafest, I will tell you that we have done it.
Thank you very much, Uchenna, for that. So we shouldn't be afraid of failing. That's my take from that. Thank you. We'll keep trying. Yes. Okay, that brings me to my last question for my panelists before I open it to the floor. So, Suleiman, what are your current thoughts on the literary culture in northern Nigeria?
Okay, I think this is like the best time for one to be a creative in northern Nigeria because we are witnessing a renaissance. It's like every angle you look at, creative minds, artistic minds are rising up, and they are asking for a voice, for their voice to be heard. So, but the issue is, the challenge is a bit more than the positive. Why I think it's a great time is if the art society in northern Nigeria can come together, they will be able to surmount them. We need to stop seeing each other as competitors, but as extensions of ourselves. So if we can work together, most of the major challenges from funding, I'm sure once we have a united voice, not necessarily the same goals, but a bit similar in terms of pursuing our separate goals, we'll be able to get the support we need to make the literary and artistic industry thrive in northern Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suleiman. This rings a bell. So this afternoon, before we came on to this panel, I was talking to Uchenna about the need for collaborations between cultural managers and cultural hubs in northern Nigeria. And then that was the last thing you see. So thank you very much for that. So this brings us to the end of my drilling for this young man. And then I'm going to open the floor for anyone who has a question. Okay, and after the questions, you guys will tell us what you think in just a few seconds, anything that I've missed or anything you want to say to the audience. All right, plenty hands. I think I saw TJ's first. Am I being impartial?
Hello, everyone. I'm so proud to see all the panelists. I can't speak enough of how proud I am. I just want to ask, Sada, Sumayya, Gimba, and now Uchenna, you all are pioneering, you are all cultural producers and curators, and you are pioneering contemporary programs up here in the north. What solutions do you see in terms of, because transportation is a very serious issue that can come, ruin your plans when it comes to assembly or this collaboration. A lot of this panel will be emphasizing the need for collaboration, but what solutions do you have when it comes to actually meeting up or bringing people together? What challenges have you experienced producing these programs here in the north, and what solutions do you have for overcoming them in terms of security and then transportation?
I think the question is to you, Sada.
Okay, maybe for all, but I'll start.
Yes, Sada, Uchenna, yeah.
I think the first solution is prayer. We just pray sometimes. Yeah, but it's unfortunate. We hope things get better, but it's especially for cultural actors, that's the most difficult issue, because I was talking to Uchenna and he was supposed to fly from Sokoto to Abuja and then come over to Kaduna, but I know the transportation sector, even by flying now, it's a bit chaotic. So he missed his flight, and they said the next available flight was maybe in 2 days. That means he will have missed this festival if he hadn't come by road from Sokoto. So please, a round of applause for him on that. So those are the challenges, but I think also as cultural artists, that's why we're different. We can't just stay back and say, there is insecurity, there is no funding, we're not going to do this. I don't know whether Katung and Ansam are here, but in 2016, we wanted to go to Ake. We didn't have money to travel, so apparently there is a train that goes to Lagos. So we decided to pay 2,500 naira and enter a train from Kaduna to Lagos. We spent 36 hours to go to Lagos, but we needed to go. When we went, we met Iliyasu. We said, we were the people that we came by train. We don't have money to register for the festival. She called her team and said, please give them tags, let them enter. So those are the things you need to sacrifice. I know there are problems, there will always be problems. There is literally a festival happening in Palestine. I know you know that. Palestine is one of the most dangerous places in the world. Syria, there are book events happening. So you can't just stop, you have to continue. Maybe just pray, as I said.
Just to add a few words to what he said, we faced same challenge last year during Soberfest when we had a very long list of guests, who we had reached out to, like, oh, amazing, I want to work with you, let's do this. But problem became, at the time, there was a lot of problems with the roads leading to Sokoto. So every other person was saying, okay, if you're going to bring us here, we have to fly you. And that became a problem. So what we did was that, I'm so grateful for Zoom, I'm so grateful for Zoom. We had to scrap a whole day from last year's event and made it completely virtual. And we had amazing audience, who participated in the first chat, the second panel. Even this year, we have decided that, okay, all of our activities will be hybrid. Whenever we cannot have them physically, we have them virtually. Whatever conversation that is needed to be had physically, we have it virtual. So Zoom saves, as well as God.
Okay. All right, I've done this side. Okay, the lady in yellow. I'm coming back.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Fatima Habib Damagum. Well, my question is, why is culture a very important factor that influences our lives? And also, can our society exist without culture? And why is it very important, and how does it impact our lives? Because we all believe that culture shape our lives, and it also affects the way we think and our values. Thank you.
I don't know if he has gotten the question, but let me hear from him.
Okay, I also think you should shorten the question. Okay, I think we have virtually talked about that previously, but I may add a few words. Culture is the complete way of life of a people. It contains the language, the food, the dressing, and everything that make a certain group of people what they are. So if you strip that away from them, basically it's like they lose their identity. It's like a snail out of its shell. So I believe culture is a very important aspect of our lives, and cultural activities help us to not just promote the culture, but to sustain it to carry it from here to the next generation as we received it from our forefathers.
Thank you very much for that answer, Suleiman. Okay, now I'm going to that other side, to my left. I saw a hand there, yes, with the red hat. We still have some time.
My name is Mohamed Bello Buhari, and my question goes to Suleiman Hassan Gimba. I read his profile here, and I follow him a lot on social media. Gimba is a mentor to me because he's a lawyer. Now, I never knew that he's interested in cultural activities like this, literary activities. And I'm an upcoming lawyer, so I look up to him. I want to hear from him, like how, because he's a columnist too, he's a journalist. So I want to see like how he usually cope with these literary activities with his works, journalism and law. Thank you so much.
Okay, the question is for you, Suleiman.
Okay, I am actually a lawyer only in name. Since my call to bar, I have been to court a total of 3 or 5 times, and I lost interest completely. It's something I can't do. I wanted to be a lawyer, but when I practice it, I don't have fun. So it's something I have set aside. So mostly my work relates to policies and advocacy. So sometimes I'm in charge of my own time, and other times I'll be stuck with the 9 to 5 boring daily life. So mostly I think I used to write a lot, especially my secondary school days and university school days. Today, I'm struggling to keep up with that. I had a weekly column. I don't think I've written anything on it in like 3 or 4 months. And for the Literary Society, I was the pioneer curator. We actually don't use curator, we use traditional roles for it as a way of conserving cultural heritage. So I was the Mai of, we named it after the traditional emir title of the Kanem Borno region. So I was the Mai. But because of my work commitments, the Literary Society was suffering. So I talked with some of my people, and then we reached a conclusion that we can't let the activities of hundreds of people suffer because of the schedule of a single individual. So I had to step down because I'm based in Abuja to allow people that are in Yobe to work on it because they can attend to the day-to-day demands of heading the organization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suleiman. Okay, I see more hands. Okay. Ochai. Oh, I saw Zara. Okay, Zara first. No, Zara. Zara, then Ochai. Namse. I thought she had a question. Okay.
I will take it by force. I'm the violent that takes it by force. So, thank you guys so much. First of all, my question goes to the audience. You guys are doing great. It's you people I have issues with. So, how do you think that you can contribute to cultural practices in northern Nigeria? The reason why I'm saying this is because we think that it's about, see, the work is much, you understand? 5, 10 people cannot do this, the work that we have. Like, we've identified the problems. These are wonderful narratives. Kabafest every year cannot do this. How do you, as an individual, think that you can contribute to the problem that we're having? You know, I've organized events where people pay, and they pay well, like 3,000 naira, not like 1,000 naira, that you have to, you know, come for 4 days. You know that it's not your money they want. They just want you to show interest. There's no, me, I want your money, I will show it, then I will still do the work. I charge you 3,000 naira, you pay, and then you still don't come. What does it mean? So at the end of the day, when I dance and then, you know, the camera turns to see the crowd, there are no crowds because the people that paid didn't come, but the tickets are sold out. So I've met people who give me money. They don't buy one ticket. Some people buy 10, 20, 25. So I don't even have to sell to people that might come. They don't give it to other people to come. Sometimes this is just how you can support, just showing up. In your little community, you see something cultural happening. Be involved. But then again, the question is to you, how do you think, how you as an individual think you can contribute to this? And then just one question to the audience.
Ochai, you've already asked your question now.
Please, you can't control my life. sorry, ma, sorry, LS, sorry. I just want to ask quickly, sorry, I beg.
Meet him later. Okay, all the hands are here. All right. Okay, I can only answer 2 questions. But Namse, is Zara asking a question? Okay, please give the mic to her. Bring her to the front, if she wants, that is. Okay, Zara, what question do you have and who is it directed to? Seriously, Namse, we don't have time. Thank you very much, Zara. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll take Farouk and I'll take Hawa Shafi'i. I'm sorry, guys. We have only 4 minutes left.
Hello, my name is Umar Farouk. First of all, I have to commend you creators. You guys are doing an amazing job. Like, literally, I've been hosting poetry events in Kaduna. I know the hustle. Talk less of a festival. In fact, I think I have an idea of starting a poetry event in Kaduna. Up to now, it hasn't left my drawer. It's still there. The thing is, the question I have here for creatives here is this. Not you, LS, please. Is this. Are you using the medium to actually establish establish that space for young people that are interested in what you do now, so that they can become part of it and also build upon it when you're not there? That's my question. Thank you very much.
Who are you directing the question to?
The creatives. Like,
Anyone?
Yeah, any one of them.
Okay,
can answer.
Uchenna.
So that's a very brilliant question, really. And I think it's something that we need to take home and work on. In Sokoto, yes, we are very deliberate about it because Sokoto is not a place people used to stay long in. A number of persons live in Sokoto for a while. After studies, they run away. Nobody remains. So what we started doing last year, after last year, about 3 very, very important persons in our community left us, and it seemed like we were going to fall, we decided that, look, the problem is it is no longer just dependent on one person. It is still being run. Even here, the planning for the second edition of Kabafest is ongoing. I called a call while I was here. They were probably calling me to tell me the outcome of their meeting. So it's something that we really are working on, such that we have persons, not just one person, that would be taken through the nitty-gritties of how it is being run, so that in the absence of this person, it stays. And it falls back to the suggestion made by Sada about having a structure, having a good structure that outlives the curator. And yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Uchenna. Okay, Auntie Lola, can we have 5 more minutes, please? Oh, all right then. Hawa? Okay, 2? Thank you. All right, then Hawa and Suleiman, because if I don't give Suleiman a chance to talk, he's going to fire me and he's my boss, so I have to give him the mic, so please bear with me.
My question is for Suleiman.
Okay.
You're hosting a festival in Yobe State, right? I think that is incredible. I feel like people don't really realize how volatile Yobe State is. If you say Borno State now, everyone knows, Boko Haram, but people don't really understand how intense, how very active the place still is. So I didn't really get a full picture of what exactly you do with the festival. I was wondering if you could please talk more on the festival. And then I heard while Sumayya was introducing you, she said something about a peace event, peace and literary stuff. I'm wondering, you have occasions or events that are lined up towards fostering peace, and what techniques do you use for this? Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think I have spoken about the activities of the Yobe Literary Society, so maybe I will jump to the peace part, and then in case I have more time, I can come back to it. When we started, we actually went with Kabafest. I'm being honest right now. It was the Yobe Book and Arts Festival. So the peace came more like we came upon it as an accident, sort of, because as a condition for getting grant from the British Council, it was that we need to use peace in our name, because the project is managing conflict in the Northeast, so there has to be element of peace before it will be approved in Abuja. And we really had no option, and because we also wanted for the festival to serve as a form of recovery for the post-insurgency period, we thought it's a blessing in disguise. Thank you. So do we have more time?
Thank you very much. Let me start by commending everyone up there. Mine is not a question. I just want to add to some of the many things mentioned, by our panelists. There are many ideas out there. A lot of people want to set up a literary organization. But again, one thing I realize is that there are a lot of considerations that people don't really pay attention to. What we are seeing today in Kabafest is a product, but there are many things that happen at the back end. How do you manage human resource? How do you effectively design projects, programs, with clear objectives and goals? I think I've interacted, as an art administrator, I've interacted with a lot of literary enthusiasts. And one thing I have come to understand is that some of them, yes, the idea is there, but the administrative part of it is missing, the programming, the monitoring and evaluation framework, and that is why they appear and disappear quickly. So I think I want to urge everyone that has interest in the literary world to begin to look at some of these considerations. Like I said, this planning, to bring what we have today as Kaduna Book and Art Festival must have had a lot of preparations, human resource management. And of course, who says that you must do all these things? If you can't do it, the consultants are out there, and I'm one. I'm very open to.
Thank you very much, Suleiman, for that. Thank you for sliding in your business. And then this brings us to the end of this panel, although I wanted to hear something my guests have to say, but I think we can always catch them outside, or where the Lebanon Delights will be outside. We'll be there, all of us. So thank you very much for being a wonderful audience. So thank you for your time, and have a good evening.